Have you ever sat across from someone who smiled to your face, all while you could feel the cold precision of a knife being sharpened behind your back? You knew, didn't you? Deeply, intuitively, you sensed they were plotting your downfall. They thought they were being subtle. They believed they were the architects of a master plan to humiliate you, to dismantle your reputation, or to steal the blessings over your life. But what they didn't realize is that while they were busy scripting your destruction, God had already handed you the ending. They mistook your silence for ignorance. They mistook your patience for weakness. And now, as their house of cards begins to crumble, as the lies they spun start to entangle them instead of you, there is a temptation to simply sit back and applaud their humiliation. But if you are truly a chosen one, if you are truly walking on a higher spiritual path, you know that revenge is beneath you. Vindication is powerful, yes, but understanding the mechanics of why they failed is what actually sets you free. The truth is deeper than just a simple victory. You didn't just outsmart them. You operated at a frequency where their weapons literally could not function. They were playing a psychological game of control, but you were fighting a spiritual war of endurance. In this video, we aren't just going to celebrate their failure, we are going to dissect the spiritual anatomy of their trap so it can never harm you again. We are going to reveal why your silence acted like a mirror that forced their mask to slip. We will uncover the critical difference between trauma-induced paranoia and true divine discernment. And most importantly, I am going to show you how to survive the messy middle. That painful waiting period between the lie being told and the truth finally coming to light. Because the ultimate victory isn't watching them suffer. It is reaching a place of power so absolute that their existence no longer demands your attention at all. Stay with me, because what we are about to uncover will turn your battle into your blueprint for unshakable peace. One of the greatest struggles for a chosen one is distinguishing between the voice of God and the echoes of your own past pain. You hear people say all the time that God showed them the enemy's script, or that they knew what was coming before it happened. But let's be honest about how confusing that can feel in the moment. When you sense betrayal, when you feel that prickle on the back of your neck, how do you know if it is truly divine discernment warning you of a snake in the grass, or if it is just unhealed trauma making you paranoid? This distinction is critical because the enemy relies on you confusing the two. If you act out of trauma, you look crazy. If you move in discernment, you become untouchable. Here is the spiritual litmus test you need to master. Trauma is loud. It is chaotic, frantic, and driven by a fear of being hurt again. When trauma speaks, your heart races. Your mind loops in obsessive circles, and you feel a desperate need to defend yourself or attack immediately. Trauma screams run or fight. But divine discernment is different. It is often called the still, small voice for a reason. Discernment is not frantic. It is heavy. It is a quiet, as grounded certainty in your gut that doesn't panic but simply observes. It doesn't scream danger. It whispers, pay attention. When God is revealing a plot against you, He doesn't give you anxiety. He gives you clarity. You find yourself looking at this person and simply knowing that their mask is slipping, without needing to make a scene. This leads to the specific strategy that allowed you to outsmart them, a technique we can call the mental ledger. While the enemy was busy performing their theatrics, trying to dazzle you with charm or intimidate you with subtle threats, you weren't reacting, you were recording. You opened a mental account in your spirit, and every time they slipped up, you made a deposit. You noticed the love bombing, That overwhelming praise that felt too heavy and arrived too soon, designed to lower your defenses. You didn't call it out, you just filed it away. You noticed the forced urgency, or the way they demanded your trust immediately, rather than earning it over time. You noticed the subtle blame shifting, how every time they hurt you, the conversation somehow ended with you apologizing for being too sensitive. Trauma would have made you scream at them for these slights, exposing your hand. But discernment told you to stay quiet and keep tracking the pattern. You realized that a single dot is just an incident, but 3 dots form a line, and that line points directly to their character. You weren't ignoring the red flags. You were collecting the data necessary to protect your destiny. By the time they were ready to spring their trap, you had already mapped out their entire psychological terrain. You didn't need to be a mind reader to know their next move. You just had to be a pattern reader. This wasn't paranoia. This was the Holy Spirit sharpening your vision, teaching you to see the wolf long before it decided to shed its sheep's clothing. Have you ever truly stopped to ask why these attacks even happen in the first place? Why do toxic people target the chosen ones, the light bearers, the people who carry the divine favor? You might think it is because they hate your success or your light. But the truth is actually far more insidious. They do not want to destroy you. If they destroyed you, you would be useless to them. What they want is to control you. They want to hijack your emotional reactions to validate their own fragile ego. They are like spiritual parasites, feeding off the energy you give them. And this concept is critical to understanding the anatomy of their trap. Psychologically, this is known as narcissistic supply. But let's reframe it spiritually as energy harvesting. The enemy's power over you is entirely an illusion, a social contract that requires your signature to be valid. Think about it. Why, when they gossip about you, spread lies, or act passive-aggressively, what is the goal? It is never about the lie itself. It is about provoking a chaotic emotional response from you. They need you to defend yourself. They need you to argue. They need you to cry, scream, or explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Why? Because your reaction proves to them that they matter. Your reaction validates their existence and gives them a sense of power over your spirit. Mano, this is why silence is so devastating to them. When you refuse to react, you are effectively starving them. You are cutting off their supply line. Their entire strategy relies on you playing the role of the victim, the scapegoat, or the defender. If you step out of that role, their script collapses. They cannot play the game alone. They need a partner to dance with in their drama. And by refusing to dance, you leave them spinning in circles on an empty stage. When you understand this, you realize that their traps are not random acts of malice. The sudden betrayals, the subtle jabs, the triangulations. These are calculated moves designed strictly to elicit a chaotic emotional response. They are testing your boundaries to see if they can still provoke you. If you panic, they win. If you defend yourself, they win. But if you observe them with a cool, detached curiosity, they panic. They don't know what to do with someone who doesn't feed their ego. But by understanding their psychological hunger, you understand exactly how to starve them. You realize that your peace is not just a personal comfort. It is a weapon of spiritual warfare. And the moment you stop feeding their dysfunction is the moment their power over you evaporates completely. You often hear about silence as a strategy. But let's be brutally honest. Staying silent when you are being attacked, misunderstood, or humiliated is incredibly difficult. and it goes against every instinct in your body. When someone is actively lying about you, your first impulse is to scream the truth, to defend your character, to make sure everyone knows the reality. But silence, in this spiritual context, is not weakness. It is an active, impenetrable fortress. It is the art of becoming uninteresting, unresponsive, and emotionally contained in the face of chaos. In psychology, this is known as the gray rock method, but we are elevating it to a spiritual discipline. Imagine a gray rock sitting by the side of the road. It doesn't move, it doesn't react. It doesn't offer any emotional supply to anyone who kicks it or yells at it. It simply exists, unbothered. Now, apply that to your spirit. When the enemy tries to provoke you, you become that rock. You give them nothing. No anger, no tears, no explanations. You answer with short, emotionless phrases like, "Okay, I see," or simply saying nothing at all. This emotional containment drives them crazy because their entire script relies on your reaction. They are desperate for you to engage, to argue, to validate their drama. But by refusing to participate, you are effectively dismantling their power over you. This requires a profound level of emotional regulation. In the heat of the moment, your nervous system will scream at you to fight back. Your heart will race, your palms will sweat, and your mind will flood with defensive arguments. But you must learn to override that instinct. Take a deep breath. Ground yourself in the present moment. Observe the person attacking you as if you are watching a character in a movie. Notice their facial expressions, their tone of voice, their desperate need for your attention. By shifting from a participant to an observer, you detach yourself from their emotional turbulence. You realize that their behavior has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own internal chaos. This is the ultimate power move. When you master the art of silence, you are no longer playing their game. You are setting the rules of engagement. You are showing them that your peace is non-negotiable, and your energy is reserved for things that truly matter. You are not ignoring them because you are weak. You are ignoring them because you are powerful. And in that silence, you find a strength that no amount of noise can ever shake. You realize that your value does not depend on their approval or understanding. You are a chosen one, and your validation comes from a source far higher than their petty dramas. So let them talk. Let them spin their webs. You will remain steadfast, unmovable, and victorious in your silence. Now we need to talk about the hardest part of this journey. The part that most teachers, pastors, and motivational speakers gloss over. We talk about the discernment, the silence, and the ultimate victory, but we rarely talk about the messy, excruciating middle. I'm talking about the waiting period. That window of time between the lie being told and the truth finally coming to light. This is the season where the smear campaign is active, where people you thought were friends start looking at you differently, where the whispers are loud and your reputation feels like it's being shredded while you stand there in silence. This is the valley of the shadow of death for your ego, and surviving it requires a specific kind of spiritual grit. In this season, the enemy will deploy what psychologists call flying monkeys. These are the enablers, the people who blindly believe the manipulator's narrative and do their bidding. They will come to you with concern, repeating the lies, asking why you're being so difficult, or urging you to just apologize to keep the peace. It is devastating to watch people you trusted be manipulated against you. It triggers a primal fear of abandonment and injustice. You will want to scream your side of the story from the rooftops. You will want to print out the text messages, show the receipts, and force everyone to see the truth. But hear this. Explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you is a waste of your divine energy. Surviving the waiting period means accepting a painful truth. You cannot control the narrative. You can only control your character. The people who are meant to be in your life will discern your spirit. The ones who fall away were never truly assigned to your destiny. They were attached to your utility or your image. This season is a divine filtration system. God is using the enemy's lies to clear your table of people who were never loyal to begin with. So what do you actually do while the lies are loud? You redirect. You take all that frantic energy you want to use for defense and you pour it into construction. You build your body. You build your business. You build your prayer life. You deepen your connection with the few safe people who have proven their loyalty. You treat your life like a walled garden. You lock the gate to the drama and you tend to the soil inside. You stop trying to be your own PR agent and you let God be your defense attorney. There is a profound freedom in realizing that the truth has a life of its own. It doesn't need your help to travel. It just needs time. And while the lie runs its sprint, the truth is running a marathon. Your job is simply to be standing at the finish line, healthy, whole, and leveled up when it finally arrives. Now, let's talk about the moment you've been waiting for. The moment that feels like justice finally breaking through. We often speak about divine vindication in vague spiritual terms. God will handle it. Vengeance is His. But there is a very specific, observable psychology to how these people self-destruct when they can no longer control you. It's not magic. It's a predictable collapse of their false reality. This is what psychologists call the narcissistic collapse. And when you understand the stages of it, you realize you don't need to lift a finger to make it happen. You just need to get out of the way. The first stage of their collapse happens when your silence and boundaries hold firm. They expected you to break, to beg, to explode. And when you don't, their anxiety spikes. They realize their usual tactics, the guilt trips, the threats, the charm, are failing. This triggers an extinction burst. Just like a toddler throwing a tantrum to get candy, they ramp up the drama. The lies get wilder, the accusations more absurd, the attempts to provoke you more desperate. This is the moment where many people cave because the pressure feels immense. But if you hold the line, they move to stage 2. In stage 2, they panic. The mask starts to slip because they are operating out of pure desperation. They start making sloppy mistakes. They tell one lie to this person and a contradictory lie to that person. They lose track of their own narrative because the truth is easy to remember. But lies require maintenance. They start acting erratic, perhaps lashing out at the very people they manipulated to be on their side. The cracks in their charming facade become visible cracks of rage, paranoia, or sheer incompetence, and they start to look unstable to the very audience they performed for. And then comes the final stage, the collapse of the stage itself. The people who are neutral, the ones watching from the sidelines, start to see the discrepancy. They notice that while this person is spiraling in chaos and negativity, you are over here building, growing, and thriving in peace. The contrast becomes undeniable. The very flying monkeys they recruited start to feel uncomfortable. The audience begins to whisper, not about you, but about them. And suddenly, the humiliation they tried to script for you becomes their own reality. They are exposed not because you shouted the truth, but because they exhausted themselves trying to suppress it. You didn't need to unmask them. They tore it off themselves in a frantic attempt to keep the show going. Your hands are clean. Your spirit is intact. And they are left standing in the wreckage of their own design. So here we are, as at the final, most dangerous turn in the road. You've survived the silence. You've discerned the pattern. You've watched the mask slip. Now, there is a temptation so subtle that it can ruin everything you've built. The vindication trap. It feels righteous. It feels like justice. You want to sit in the front row with popcorn and watch their life implode. You want to see the karma hit. You check their social media, waiting for the breakup, the job loss, the public scandal. Sir, you replay the scenarios in your head where they come crawling back, apologizing, admitting they were wrong about everything. But let me tell you something hard to hear. If you are waiting for their failure to feel successful, they still own you. This is the trap of spiritual pride. It's easy to look at their chaos and feel superior, to think, look at what God did to them for touching His anointed. But true victory is not about looking down. It's about looking away. If your peace depends on their suffering, you are still tethered to them. You are still dancing to their rhythm, just from a distance. The enemy doesn't care if you hate them or love them, as long as you are obsessed with them. Hate is still a form of attachment. It still consumes your mental energy. It still keeps you looking backward when God is trying to propel you forward. The ultimate level of power is not revenge. It is indifference. It is reaching a place where their name no longer spikes your heart rate, where their success doesn't make you jealous and their failure doesn't make you gloat. It is a state of being where they simply are. Like a stranger on the street or a character in a book you finished reading years ago. When you reach indifference, you break the final chain. You reclaim every ounce of energy you spent analyzing their motives, defending your name, and waiting for justice. You take all of that power back and you invest it into your own purpose. That is when you truly become untouchable. That is when you become free. Not because they lost, but because you no longer need them to lose in order to win. This brings us to the final gate you must walk through to fully step into your next level. And that is the boundary of forgiveness. Many chosen ones get stuck here because they have been taught that forgiveness means reconciliation. They think being spiritual means keeping the door open to people who have repeatedly tried to burn the house down. Let me break this chain for you right now. Forgiveness is a command to release the poison from your own heart so it doesn't rot your spirit. But reconciliation and access are privileges that must be earned. You can forgive a thief for stealing from you, but you do not give him the keys to your house again. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. God didn't allow this season to break you. He allowed it to build a gatekeeper in your spirit. You needed to learn that your access is expensive. You needed to learn that not everyone who speaks the language of loyalty is walking in the light. This betrayal was your boot camp. It was the fire that burned away your naivety and forged you into a warrior who can handle the weight of the blessing that is coming next. The enemy thought they were burying you, but they were only planting you. So stand tall, chosen one. Your discernment is sharp, your boundaries are iron, and your future is untouched. If you receive this word today, if you know deep in your spirit that your season of humiliation is over and your season of elevation has begun, I want you to declare it. Like this video to seal this truth. Subscribe to join a community that refuses to stay silent. And comment below. My silence was my strategy. You have already won. Now go walk in it.